Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. So, welcome to the second of our pre-season of the first draft. So let's get to live scene. There we go. Oh, I haven't got my lights on. I'm so unprepared today, everybody. So, if you've missed it, what is the first draft? I'll give you a quick rundown. Basically, the first draft is going to be a web serial where every aspect of it is going to be live streamed or recorded. So you'll be able to... The idea behind it being called the first draft is that it is pretty much that. So you get to see the planning that goes in, you get to see me actually write it, and you can join in, ask questions. The story that gets created will be published periodically on the website after each episode. But for now, we've got three basic planning sessions to kick us off. So yesterday, if you joined us, we dealt with basically what the plot is. What's this story about? Today, we are going to be looking at the world building. So if any of you are writers and have questions about world building, by all means, join, ask questions, make suggestions. This is full of participation if you want, or you can just sit back and watch. It's absolutely fine. What I'm trying to do is, as I go through my thought processes, I'm going to basically be speaking them out loud. So you can kind of get an idea of how I kind of come up with my ideas, how I switch between ideas, and maybe, go down one path and then kind of maybe switch to something else. We had a really, really great session yesterday on the plot. Really nailed that out. Everybody kind of contributed and asked questions. It was really, really good. So let's bring up, not that one. Bring the right document up. There we go. Right. So just to give you a little bit of background, if you haven't been here before, my name's Adrian Faulkner. I am a writer of novels, video games. I've done some script work, but not commercially. Written all sorts of things professionally. And also I dabble in a few other things. And one of the things I felt that was missing was literally something like this, where you got to actually see something being written. So I am going to increase the font just to make it a little bit easier on everybody's eyes. I'm going to go to 20. Oh no, 24 is probably too big, isn't it? Go to 20. So I'll read through this. This is what I basically, after yesterday's session, if you go to my website, you'll be able to see the live stream of it, the original notes that we took, and these written up notes that make it a little bit clearer. So this is what we came up with the plot. Years ago, an advanced civilization set up a colony on a planet. They used, look at this, used wormhole technology to travel great distances with temporary. This should be the second draft thing. Temporary tears, Okay, so they use wormhole technology, which temporary tears holes in the fabric of space. So basically, they rip open space, travel through it, and then close space behind them. One of these tears opened a portal to another realm filled with demonic alien creatures. We're not entirely sure what they are at the moment. We will come to that when we come to characters on Monday. They nearly wiped out the entire civilization. So basically, these alien creatures streamed through, nearly wiped out the thing, and the advanced civilization basically had to destroy their faster-than-light capability. And as a result of that, the colony that we're going to be dealing with forgot about their heritage over a course of thousands of years. So thousands of years have passed since this. This might be a mix of traditional medieval fantasy and, because we can do less commercial ideas, this is one of the things that we discussed, was that you know, this isn't intended ever to be a novel. This is intended to be a bit of fun, to basically look at the craft of writing by actually doing it rather than talking about it. We can do things that wouldn't be commercially viable, that are a lot of fun. So this might be a mix of medieval fantasy and, because we do less commercial ideas, a weird western. To be decided in the world building section, which is today. So basically we come to the current, that's the backdrop. So currently an archaeologist finds the remains of the wormhole technology and brings it to the colonies, now pseudo-fantasy civilization because they've kind of progressed, brings it to their aristocrats. They find it can open holes in space to other realms, and they use this to send their troops through to steal riches and natural resources. I think this is going to be important with how we build the world. I'm actually going to highlight this because this, to me, when I'm kind of planning something, this is going to have a big effect on how the world acts. It also gives people strange magical abilities. So magic does come into this as well. So let's highlight that as well. I think magic comes into the world building. A strange man turns up who is part of the old advanced civilization and has knowledge that the colony does not. He warns them not to open portals, but they expel him from the cities to the farms and the outlying areas and just continue to open portals. As a result, the army goes into a realm where our big bad is waiting. So the swarm. We need a kind of really cool name for those. So we'll get to that on Monday. But something like the swarm, the horde. We used examples of like the Zerg from StarCraft. As a result, the army goes into a realm where the big bad is waiting. They wipe them out. They take out all the soldiers, and then they stream through the portal. The big bad might be conscripting people themselves, like their own first draft. So we talked about the idea of what the first draft was like drafting soldiers. So like the idea is that these characters that we're going to be talking about are the first of many conscripts. And we said that it'd be kind of cool if the big bad is also kind of doing something like that themselves. We talked about whether they kind of were zombifying, and it was suggested that it would probably be a really cool idea if it was a willing choice. But the thing that we decided on was there needs to be a steep price to pay. So the aristocrats, that's the Disney movie. The aristocrats lock up the cities and abandon their villagers. Now, we talked about whether that was a sensible thing to do. One of the viewers said about the 100 Years' War, how there were parallels there. Always good to look at history. The strange man basically then recruits the local villagers, which are like the first draft, to help defend the rest of the villagers. This is I wrote this up at like at 2 o'clock this morning, so I need to edit this. But this is the first draft, so you get to see how terrible it is. All first drafts are terrible. So if you're writing yourself, don't ever feel bad that what you first write down is just absolute trash. It's the way it is. You just accept it. We can edit this, so like we would change this word here. We wouldn't have villagers defend the locals, maybe. There we go. So, or another word. It's not the best word, but it will do. He needs them to go through the latest portal and destroy it. They do this, but in doing so, the portal closes behind them, leaving them stuck in the new world. They need to find their way back, save the world, and put an end to the big bad. So there is a lot of conflict there. That's what we want. There's a lot of drama there. So, having read all that and all the errors that are in there, I am going to highlight a few things. These are the important bits for thinking about, where we're thinking about we're thinking about world building. So would we need to think? Yeah, probably. The reason I am highlighting this is because there is multiple layers of world building. Now, we discussed it yesterday. We want this story. Hi, Bob. How are you? There we go. So we want this story to have lots of options. Now, that is part of... We talked about the constraints of the story yesterday. And one of the things, because I'm going to be doing this... the kind of plan is I'm going to kind of do this daily for 2 weeks. And then maybe slow down into like a weekly cadence. I just want to kind of get a little bit of momentum going on it first of all. So, one of the things I don't want to do is write myself into a corner. So one of the reasons why there's a large number of protagonists, why some things are not kind of being locked down, is to give me options when I'm writing. Because if I'm having a bad day and I write myself into a corner, I don't want to kind of come stuck. Because I'm not planning this, I'm kind of setting it up. We're kind of like doing the pilot episode, and then we are... we're doing the pilot episode, and then we're kind of leaving it open, and we'll see where the story goes. So, the same reason, we've got kind of a lot of world building here to do. So we have got... We've got the advanced civilization to think of. So that's the history. We don't have to go into it too much. So it's 20. We have also got the medieval world. Now, I'm going to put the Weird Western, because that was kind of an idea yesterday. We have got... I don't know why I've got these alerts coming through. We have got the big bad. So we need to think about their world building. Now, I'll explain in a little bit. Actually, I'll go into it now. The reason we need to think about their world is because it's gonna... World informs character. So, if you know, literally, if you set a story in Victorian times, or with certain technology, people are gonna have different attitudes towards things. So, you know, if you did a story set in medieval times, say we set it in the real, it was set in the real world, then any sort of technology would be seen as magic, might be seen as evil, against, you know, kind of against religion. So that would affect how our characters view the world. You know, I think one of the most interesting things to look at is that we're very good at looking back at history and saying, gosh, these people in history were terrible people. And I don't think there's any denying that, like, history is filled with horror of what humans were capable of and are still capable of. But the thing a lot of people I think sometimes forget, is that if you were brought up in that environment, if you were brought up in an environment, say, that women were second class, and I mean, this is something that's, you know, obviously still happens with some people these days, then that becomes normalized. And because that becomes normalized, if you were in that environment, you probably would be, you know, 90% okay with the terrible things that were going on. So, and so, I don't know, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but the reason we want to think about that big bad world is we need to think about what is motivating them. This is going to help us with character. Now, it's unlikely that we're ever going to go to that big bad world. We may do like in season 9 if we ever get that far. Or in episode 2. This is the way stories can sometimes go. They can take things. So, I don't think it's a priority, but I think it's going to help us with our character. The final area is the portal realm. So we've got 4 civilizations to kind of, or 4 worlds to kind of think of. So what we are going to do is go on through each of them in turn. Now, the ones that are the most important is the Portal Realm and our kind of initial starting world. Now, we want these two to be different. So this whole idea of medieval world, weird western, maybe we swap it around, maybe we don't. Let's start with the easy ones first. So, advanced civilization. So, I think that advanced civilization is going to be faster than light travel, galactic trade, oh, can I request something? Of course you can, Bob. Go on, suggest, request away. If you did your work on Google Doc, then you could have links and people could read it as you worked. Okay. Okay, I'll look into that. Potentially do that. I'll look at doing that for Monday, if you like. Yeah. I mean, as I say, my initial thing was to do it on live stream, but yeah, I could, yeah, that would be kind of cool. I like that idea. I will sort that out, Bob. That is a brilliant, brilliant idea. I'm going to have a note section. Excellent. Thank you very much. I really like that. Music has suddenly stopped. Right, so we have got the advanced fast and light galactic trade. I'm gonna say this. We don't have to kind of go into detail, but it's handy for us to know that this is still playing. I don't know that. No, oh, it is still playing. There we go. Alexa, computer, stop. My Alexa's now going. Sorry about that. Right, okay, music. I'm getting all distracted here. Not by Bob. Bob made really good suggestion, but by myself. So, the advanced civilization. We don't need to know too much detail. So sometimes what I do is I will cheat if I have got like a historic civilization, because I want to give myself a little bit of freedom when I'm writing. I can't even spell too much. There we go. So what I will do is, if this is kind of like backstory, so like historic or a far off land or things like that, just to kind of keep my mind in check as I'm writing it, I will sometimes, what I will do is I will say, and I'm saying I am not a huge Star Trek fan, but I do watch Star Trek. My mental process is going to be, imagine it's Starfleet that was there. It's obviously going to be different, and as I write it, I will turn left, instead of being a federation of planets, it might not be something like that. So, but if I'm just kind of mentioning it, when I'm writing it, I will just think, right, my mental go-to until I fill in those gaps and kind of do my own thing is, it was kind of like Star Trek. And that works if you're gonna have something that is kind of, if you're writing something and it's a faraway land, or it is a like something from history, that what you can kind of do is kind of almost stick in a placeholder that go, if you don't know what to do, just copy something that was already there. Obviously not in terms of names, but you know, fast and light travel, galactic trade. Well, it's kind of Star Trek-y, isn't it? So that one I think is pretty easy. So what, as I say, what I kind of tend to do is I will, when I come to write that, I'll go, you know, if I have a scene where they're talking about the history, I'll start writing and I'll go, oh, Star Trek did this, and I don't want it to be Star Trek. I want it to be something slightly different. So I'll start deliberately saying, well, what is Star Trek? Okay, so I need the first and light travel, I need the galactic trade. But what are aspects? And it depends what I'm writing. If I was talking about like how they all group together, maybe instead of this being this kind of wonderful, peaceful thing, it maybe have done through galactic conquest or something like that. So I'll just deliberately flip the switch a little bit to kind of move further away from the original idea. But when I'm initially writing, I'm kind of cheating. It means I don't have to think about it too much, and if I just casually mention it, so like if the old man who comes and knows the history of it, if he makes a reference, I don't need to kind of go, oh, I need pages and pages of world building. Some people do that. Some people will literally write like an RPG for their advanced civilization, even though they're not going to mention it that much. I prefer to go the other way, where it's minimal detail, and I will kind of fill in the gaps or change things as I come to write. So that gives me a bit of freedom there. So the big bad world. So it's got to be a culture on some sort of culture of oppression. Survival of the fittest. The thing that I'm thinking here, so oh gosh, this is a live stream of how Adrian can't operate Word. But we'll go to Google Docs on Monday, and then it will be even worse. Right. So the big bad world. I am thinking my head, my inspiration here is things like Doom. I kind of like that hellish vibe, hellish sci-fi vibe. The Zerg from Star Trek, Starship Troopers. A little bit of Diablo. I'm mainly thinking of, like, you know, the cover. So that's my inspiration. This is the kind of thing. So this one's kind of, this one I've got a few ideas on. So they're basically their realm is dying. It's kind of hellish realm world, right? So because of that, resources are scarce. And because the resources are scarce, it is literally, you know, you've got to be, you know, if you're not up to living there, it's a tough life. If you're, you know, it's tough enough to survive if you're fit and well. If you're not fit and well, then you're just, you're a kind of a hindrance to the pack. I like the idea of the pack. That does sound like a... That will be useful for when we come to maybe character building. So yeah, because the resources are scarce, need from elsewhere. So we're taking something that we've kind of got this mindless kind of insect kind of vibe, and we're kind of giving them a little bit more layer. Why are they like this? Well, because they live in a harsh environment, and the only way they have to scavenge for everything. So, you know, the fact that they will kill all the villagers is, you know, or recruit them or do something like that, is the it's kind of comes from that sort of culture. I want, it's 2 tiers. So I'm gonna say drones and queens. I'm kind of thinking of that insecty vibe. So so the now I'm gonna flip this at some point. Well, in StarCraft, there's a sort of assimilated conquered races. Yeah, somebody else suggested Borg and things like that. I'm kind of think of a different way that the kind of how you could assimilate them. Ooh, how about this? So I'm thinking that the drones, right, they're a little bit mindless. We were talking about this whole idea of the big bad would kind of, there might be a way that some villagers would want to go and work for the big bad. So how about, this is going a little bit Borgy and things like that. So they have a quest to upgrade drones. Them drones are really things, so right, okay. I've played a bit of StarCraft, but I have to be a bit honest. I haven't really paid much attention to the world building in that. But I've seen, like, I like the idea of that you've got all these troops and they're just like flooding it. So drones are, how about this? So that drones are actually pretty useless. So, you know, they're pretty mindless. So what if that, and this could be a bad pact that people don't realize, is that basically the queens, and I'm going to change it from queen because that's too obvious. It will be something different. So the quest, basically, what they're going to do is that instead of having these mindless drones, they basically will take the villagers and use their body parts and maybe their brains to kind of make them more intelligent, to maybe introduce a 3rd mid-tier. We can choose a better word for it tomorrow, on Monday. But I'm thinking like the Ascended. So there is a class structure within the lore-wise, all the different Zerg units were mostly different conquered races: Hydralisks, Zerglings, yeah, Mutalisks. Okay, cool. Yeah, I know the individual units of it, and I have, as I say, I have played a little bit of it, but cool. So what they're gonna say, what we're maybe doing is that, so like where there's genetic modification to fit them into Zerg, we're kind of having that, but like just all going into this mid-tier between the drones and the drones and the queens. So they're basically, they're scavenge body parts to basically make their drones better, to make them more effective fighters. So you know, the problem is with drones is that they would literally swarm into an area and there wouldn't be any battle tactics. It's just literally volume is how they take things over. So the queens would be saying, well, look, if we could take the brains of the villagers, maybe we can make these drones like more intelligent. which would make gathering of resources a lot easier. And I think there should be false promises. I think the queens should maybe say, look, you know, come to us and we'll give you power and things like that, that some people would go to them. And then they find that, they, you know, like we said, there needs to be a price to pay. The price to pay is that, yeah, you're fine, but your brain is going to be put into one of the drones. And you're, you know, you're going to have a badger's arm stuck on the side if you just make you more effective. So they're kind of, I'm going to say mutant-y, because that is a word. Yeah? I like that. That's got, I mean, I don't want to nail it again. Don't want to nail it down too much, because I think if you do, then what you will sometimes find is that you're writing and you'll go, actually, this was a terrible idea, or it wasn't necessarily a terrible idea, but I've had a better idea, or I have an idea that works better within the case of the story, and everything gets changed. And that's fine to do when you're writing. You obviously want to do that before you get too deep into the story, but we're in a kind of an unusual situation here. So, yeah. So, yeah, their survival of the fittest is if they upgrade the drones with body parts, then, you know, false promises and, like, literally, you know, false riches, maybe. Because they have no use for gold. It's not about wealth. They have no need for wealth. So typically what I would do is, like, with something like this, I would go on a long walk. Or I'd play like a game or something like that was kind of mindless, and I would just think about these things and try and think what it's like. Put my head into kind of, quite literally, into one of the queens of this and say, well, what would they be trying to do? They're trying to make their drones more effective. And they could say to them, look, you join us. You can literally come to all these worlds and you can take all the golds and gems that you want. Because we have no need of them. Because what use are they? What they need is food, and it's much more space survival. So that would draw people in, I think. You know, some people would go, well, you know, I can have all these riches. Well, yeah, that's great, but you've got to give up your brain to be put into you know, have your arm attached to become like this mutant thing. That feels incredibly fleshed out to me. And the reason it feels fleshed out is because I feel like I have a motivation. You see, now this is how world building leads into character. Because there's gonna be a character for one of the queens. And they're gonna be this kind of character that will kind of offer these kind of riches and you know, like I don't want to say Loki because we think Marvel Loki, but offering this kind of wealth and things like that. And there's some horror with that as well. We can have, like, where, you know, literally Bob says, no, I want riches, I'm fed up with being a poor farmer, and then suddenly he comes back with his head attached to the body of one of the drones. That I'm kind of happy with. So, we have got 2 done already. This is going well. So, got the advanced, as I say, the advanced civilization, I'm cheating on that. And we'll fill in the details as I go. The big bad, I think I've got motivation. I can build character off of this. Not that there's going to be many of these characters, but... So, it gives us to these 2 realms. These 2 things. The medieval world that we start in, and the portal realm that we go into. Now, I am going to spend most of my time in the portal realm once the story gets going. So this needs to be most fun to write. Needs to be fighting because the drone's already there. That's where they originally stream out of. So okay. So I'm trying to speak out loud while I'm thinking at the same time. So this world, right? So this world has already opened portal to Big Bad World. BBW, as it's gonna know. We'll eventually give these wonderful sounding names like Tomorrow and things like that. So it's already opened it. Have been fighting Big Bad for years. They've got to be overrun as well, because when we open our portal to it, they stream out. So okay. So that where I'm thinking at the moment. Right, I am now currently thinking of history. So I'm also thinking about projects I'm doing. I've got projects where the world is kind of Georgian, like based on Georgian England. I've got worlds where it's based on the Holy Roman Empire. So it's got to be something that I understand well enough, but is different, is really different, and I can have fun with this. Don't want to go. My thinking at the moment is I'm saying, look, because this story isn't going to be for commercial publication, I've got a lot more free reign to play in the sort of non-traditional worlds. You know, there's no requirement on me to try and fit neatly into a category or to do things that will try and attract viewership or readers. So, what I would do... I can really go out there with something. Part of the reason why I like the Weird Western idea... So, okay, let's go here. We have got a tier system. There class seems to be something that keeps popping up here. Now, you may also think, well, this is pretty basic at the moment. And again, it's to give me, when I come to write it, I will give it more depth. Sometimes if I'm planning something, what I will do is this process can take like years. Sometimes what I tend to do with like a story is I will have something like this, and then I will wait for another idea to just give it that extra bit of a twist. And sometimes that can then really elevate it. And I think something that could elevate it is in the world building. Is to do something really, really different. So, okay, I'm thinking of inspiration at the moment. So, what can I do? What worlds out there that are really out there? Without being kind of like absurdist. Thinking of games I've played, books I've read, movies I've watched. This has to be a bait. So, right, let's keep filling this out. So, there's a 2-tier system there. Seems to be like a lord and serf. Maybe we can make it a bit lord, instead of like cities, like lords and serfs. First thing that comes to mind when I think that is like, how do people get educated? Because you don't. This is interesting. As I'm doing this, one of the things I used to do when I wrote was I would write something and then kind of look at it and go, what's the theme of it? Because people always want to know about themes. And I always used to say, well, I write it, I don't know, and then find the themes afterwards. But I'm definitely seeing like this theme of like surf. I don't want to go into the area of slavery because that is a minefield. I'm a white guy. I don't have enough education to kind of go deep into that area and do it justice. But there's definitely this whole kind of thing of class struggle, like the rich and the poor. No, you've got the drones and the queens, you've got the lords and the serfs. This is definitely, there's definitely going to be a theme. So I'm going to make a note of that. Sometimes it's good to be aware. Bob, what does Bob say? So, the idea of exterminating a populace you're at war with is a fairly modern idea. Back in the day, war was all about subjugation and tribute. Ooh. So, all right, I'm going to read this because obviously the replay. So, Bob says, so the idea of exterminating a populace you're at war with is a fairly modern idea. I agree. Back in the day, it was all about subjugation and tribute. What if the big bad world operates on the same principle? I like that. Yeah, I think I can play with that, so. So this is going to feed into the portal world. That's helped us in several ways. Do you see how it like links up? So like, so if they demand tribute, so basically they come in and they go, look, we're gonna literally, we've overrun your world. So they've come into here, they've overrun it, and they've said we demand tribute. And you can have a really fun play on things where the aristocrats will say, well, what's in it for me? And we go, well, you know, if you become part of us, you will share in the riches of the worlds that we invade. So some of the rich people will go, yeah, sign me up. And then it gets horror. And then it becomes the lords throwing their serfs to it. So they could do more than demand tribute. They could also slowly corrupt the institutions and rulers to serve their colony. I think that in this world, the aristocrats are, because they've gone into the other worlds to steal the riches, I think they're going to go more freely. I don't think they need to corrupt it. I think they'll go willing. What will be really interesting is that the lords will kind of say, yep, sign me up. I want all these riches. You know, you've wiped out our army, but yeah, I'd sign me up. We're joining with you. Yeah. I'm thinking of all the wealth I can accumulate. And then there's that realization. And by that time, they've made a pact with the devil, so to speak. And instead of fighting it, they basically screw over the villagers. Which kind of goes back into this whole class thing. So I'm thinking, I'm building this picture of like this medieval world. Like the lords would be against education because they don't want they want to keep their serfs. You know, you work in the fields. That's what you do. You know, and a note to self here. Just because it is a topic that needs to be handled with care. Be careful straying into slavery topics. And as I say, that is not to say that, you know, just forget about it. It's just a note to myself that what we don't want to do. So maybe the serfs. This is how I'm gonna. So basically, they're not given that much of an option. So if they go willingly, why not make some of them take the corruptions of the big bad world willingly, so the aristocrats become like terrifying bug people? Yeah, I think that some of them will. Yeah. I think that's definitely... I suppose I want to cover this sort of horror angle. You know, we talked yesterday about the idea of like this kind of, like you get with the zombie genre, where it's this overwhelming dread. So, you know, I'll put a note there. Some will go willingly. I think just gives it a little bit of texture there, that some of them, maybe we'll have a big bad lord who will take it on and will quite happily become ascended. I'm not sure if I'll probably change that, because I think I'm using that in another thing I'm writing and I don't want to confuse myself, but we'll come to that. But yeah, I think that gives it texture, that some people will go willingly. Yeah, I'm quite happy to become, like, you know, mutanty for the riches. Some of them will be like, whoa, wait a minute, you said riches, you said nothing about getting my brain taken out and, you know, stuck on a insect. I'm making a note for tomorrow. I was just thinking there, that was like bugs, we're talking bugs and all that, and I was like, oh, bugs have been done so much. Thinking crab people, that could be quite fun. That's been done as well, but you know, crab scorpion people with like pincers, and that will go into world building. But sometimes when you have these ideas, you just note them down. So yeah, so basically what it is that serfs, if you're a serf, you can serve any lord you like, and you may change around because you get better deal, but they all basically screw you over. There's always, this is one thing my history exam taught me, is there's always that small portion that don't fit. It's always an exception. So there's always going to be a small portion who don't have a lord, and they maybe live badly but free. That may prove where our man who comes along and tries to stop everything, maybe that's where he finds the people to form the first draft. So I think this is going to be a medieval world. A little bit earlier than I would have done. But basically, instead of city, how did they organise them in those days? Was it duchies? Mini kingdoms? I can't remember the name. But I'll believe city for now, but it's not, won't be a city. Basically, you've got a lord who's over there, their shire or whatever it is, and you know they live in their castle, and I wish my watch wouldn't keep buzzing at me. Yeah, they live in their castle, and then they have their surrounding lands where they have the farmers who supply for the. So that would kind of make sense. I don't think it's necessarily an important question, but I'm going to put it down as so that we don't have, like, you know, you've got 20 men here, you've got 20 soldiers here, you've got 20 soldiers there. We need all the soldiers to be kind of wiped out. So maybe there's some overarching kingdom. We're not going to be too long in here. I mean, we'll probably be, you know, thinking in terms of writing and the scenes, probably 2-3 weeks. So I don't think we need to worry about it too much. So if we're going to give up the Weird Western, let's put Weird Western here. Now, my thinking here is that if I get bored of this realm, if I feel like the world is really putting me in a corner, I can just write something into the plot where they go through another portal and they go to a different world. So I've got a get out clause. So, okay, I'm going to make a note of that, because now you'll see that I'm jumping between these two worlds, like, and part of that is because this is where a lot of where our characters are going to come from. So what I want to do is make sure that when they go into the portal, I'm going to move, because we're going to be going through, I'm going to move the big bad world up here. So that it's less scrolling. So yeah, our characters are going to come from this world. So they may have done some things to educate themselves, to yeah, I mean, it could be there in a small portion without a lord. Yeah, the corruption of the weird. Yeah. Everybody has some sort of good degree of bug parts. Yeah. I'm gonna put that down. Get us now. I've moved it. I'm gonna scroll up. To allow for that idea is sometimes the tribute is, look, literally, we need arms for our drones. We need fingers and dexterity. So you will give us 5 people who will sacrifice an arm. And because we are benevolent bug people, or crab people, or scorpion people, we will give you the claw that we took off them instead. So I think then that would kind of allow for it. So I'm thinking inspiration here. I'm thinking I've only watched the films, not read the books, but I'm thinking Hunger Games. That basically there is this side kind of regular you know, thing where it's like, oh, it's, you know, it could be yearly, it could be every Wednesday afternoon, that it's like, right, okay, it's your time, the bug people have, you know, the big bad has come, and it's like, you know, the queen is there and it says, I need your offering, and they have to offer 5 people, and they don't know what's going to happen to those people. Maybe they'll lose a head, maybe they'll just come back with a different arm. Maybe some queens would say, well, I'm just taking the arm, I don't giving you anything back. Some may be slightly different. It allows for a lot of variance. And it so questions I want to ask. So first thing is, I'm thinking with Weird Western. So like the medieval world, the weapons that they all have is very much going to be swords and, you know, swords and like, let them have the Weird Western world that they all have guns, you know, revolvers. Let's go kind of really heavy on this. Creates a contrast, makes these characters when they come into this world feel very much out of place. And also it's because I want that the first draft feel that they have the odds, the odds are against them. And this will help because basically they've not come across guns or revolvers before. So, therefore, it's going to kind of help. It's using world building to help kind of reinforce an idea. So, you know, if we make this world more technically advanced, then it kind of adds to the tension and the conflict because, you know, these people have been sent to destroy the portal, which they managed to do, but then they're trapped. And they're in a world that's more technically advanced than them. So they're out of their depth. It's just that whole kind of feeling of being out of their depth. So the other thing is I want magic in this world. Now we did say that this world that basically no magic other than what So there's initially no magic, but when they find this faster than light crystal, it basically gives some of them powers. So that will allow our first draft to have powers. I'm thinking plot already here is how we kind of tie this all up. Is that we said the ones that live without a lord live being about free. Basically our heroes. This is very bad writing, but don't worry about it. Our heroes are basically living like this. They do this, but and have been working for archaeologist. So you see how like we take the world building and we've kind of now tied it back to plot. I can't even spell anything. There we go. So basically they help find the crystal. And I'm calling it a crystal now rather than a fasten light device. So it's kind of evolving ideas. So they help find that initial crystal that gives things, and so therefore they're exposed to it, and therefore they get powers, which is why the man from the advanced civilization would probably try and recruit them. I like that idea. So we got now. This is probably a huge part. Is magic. So we have got magic. So there is magic in this world, but it's gained through that crystal. Other than that, there's no magic. This one does have magic. And I have a formula for coming up with magic systems. And the way I do it is I use senses. This is top secret. Don't tell anybody. So all of the magic, so I try and link it to senses. So if you think that you take any magic and you say abracadabra and something happens, well, that's voice. So that's hearing. Sense of hearing. I've got other ones which are based. I'm doing something at the moment that uses smell as the basis of magic. Touch. Taste. Taste is potions. That's quite boring. Hearing, smell. Something with singing as well. What I basically want to do is have these magic systems as very, very different. Again, I'm trying to create the sandbox in which I'm going to play. I can't even remember what this is. Just making a note to myself. So we've got sight, sound, touch. Hi, human robot. So we are currently I'm trying to work out magic systems, and I'm trying to work out I'm doing these choices are basically based on the fact that I am doing crossing out the ones. doing something other. I've got other projects on the go that use that, so I don't want to make. I want to make sure that I don't choose a magic system that kind of collides with something else I'm doing. This is something I think about for ages, because a lot of good stories have really great magic systems. And as I say, I spent ages, like at the beginning of the year, coming up with a structure for like all my magic systems going forward, and it's actually proved really, really useful. Okay. I am going to choose taste. I am going to delete this part, I'm afraid, because I don't want to give too much away, because it really... And... making that... go into that in a little bit more. Not potions. I'll give you an idea where my thoughts are at the moment. I'm thinking the guns and revolvers and how that fits in with magic. Now, Brian McLennan, who is we share an agent, he did some really great stuff with gunpowder magic. I don't want to touch that, but I'm thinking that guns now. So what is going to be what would be the cool magic system? Incense. Yeah, I'm kind of doing something a little bit like that with the smell. I'm doing on another project, on a commercial project. And I want to kind of make sure, for obvious reasons, I want to make sure this is far removed from my commercial projects as possible. Now, it should be that the cool magic is with our hero, so... The site is like literally like things like runes and writing. Peter V. Brett did this really cool thing where it was like site magic, where it was like the runes you carved into yourself. That was pretty cool. Torture-related magic, or sort of necromancy. Kind of like Vitae from the Amnesia series. I haven't actually played that. Is that a really good game? You know, I'm so terrible on games at the moment. I was playing like loads of World of Warcraft, and I've kind of swapped to Minecraft for the time being. But I literally have Games Pass. And like all these great games, I got it last year because of the pandemic, and I literally, like, all these great games, I just am not playing. So I will have to check. I've heard about Amnesia. Yeah, necromancy is the dead. Yeah. I don't want to go for something obvious. I want something that people go, cool, I've never seen this before. I genuinely think that, like, for a lot of cool books, the magic system, people underrate how much readers put into magic systems. So, one of the stories I was told was I had a meeting with Brandon Sanderson's agent a few years back. And we were talking, and he told me this story that Brandon writes, like, obviously he's like massive author now, but when he started, his agent said the reason he picked him up, he said when he first was there, he said plotting was a really, really weak point, which you wouldn't think of, like, for Brandon Sanderson. You're more into sci-fi. Okay, cool. Cool. So, well, what we're trying to do with this is that there is a sci-fi element to this story. So basically what we're doing is, like, advanced civilization colony, it's forgotten its past. It finds some of its past, but it doesn't know how to properly use the technology, and it causes kind of weird stuff to happen. So we are, like, the ancient civilization is kind of Star Trek influenced. The big bad world, the big bad, we're kind of thinking like Doom, Zerg, Starship Troopers, Diablo. Kind of like hordes of insects, something like that. Then we're going to go traditional fantasy for our initial world, and then our portal world, we kind of want to go kind of Dark Tower, so a little bit elements of sci-fi, maybe elements of steampunk, but I want to kind of mix it up with magic. So you can't normally do this in a commercial project, because a commercial project will basically say, you know, if you go to the bookstore and you like space opera, for example, space opera with dragons, if it's from an established author, if your favourite sci-fi author, so if you like Peter Hamilton or Gareth Powell or somebody like that, writes a book that's space opera with dragons, you're likely to go with it because you go, okay, I know those authors write really good sci-fi, so if they're doing something with a bit of a twist, I'll go with it. But you're less likely to take a chance on an established on a new author. So what you tend to find is that publishing tends to be very, very much, unless you're established, you've kind of got to fit into very kind of strict silos. So I don't know what type of sci-fi you're kind of into, what's thing, but one of the freedoms of doing this exercise is that basically I don't have to stick into like any kind of genre, so I can have fun with it and mix things up. So I want elements of sci-fi, I want elements of fantasy. One of the things I really love about a lot of the kind of Japanese anime, I'm not huge on Japanese anime. I watch a few series, but one of the things I really love is their ability to just not care when something's fantasy and when something's sci-fi. And so you kind of get a lot of kind of like fantasy, sci-fi, horror stories, and I love it. I love that they mix it up. But in terms of like Western traditional publishing, you just can't touch that stuff. You mentioned slavery topics. I find that one interesting. The reason I am saying I said be careful straying into that is I think it is a very, very valuable topic. But I think as a white person, it is really, really easy to get that wrong. And so for me, going into and doing that, especially where I'm doing something as a first draft. So normally what you would do in publishing is that if you're doing anything that kind of involves delving very deep into kind of things to do with gender, the normal topics, is that what you would get is you would get a sensitivity reader, and that's normally somebody from somebody from that sort of culture who would read it and just go, well, this could be problematic. It's maybe not deliberate, but somebody could read it as problematic. And because this is a first draft, I don't kind of want to stray into anything where my first draft could get it wrong. We could take that idea and work on it, right? So instead of it being slaves, a magic system requiring sacrifice, there should always be a cost to magic. What if... Right, okay, I'm going to give the taste one. I'm going to have a think about this between sessions. So I think that's an interesting area, but I really need to spend some serious time just kind of letting it dwell in the back of my ground. But what if this magic is about you sacrifice body parts? So in order to cast magic, you maybe not so much not blood magic, but you know, maybe you have to give like tip of your finger or something like that. And this goes into with like the whole Hunger Games things where your body parts are being kind of traded off as tribute. It kind of creates a little bit of tension there. And I think that could be interesting to go. What do you think of that human robot? Like, literally. I'm gonna... This is... The reason I'm putting touch there is because how I organise my magic systems is based on, as I said, based on the senses. So I think just having that note for myself kind of knows it's going to help me with kind of keeping that magic system straight. Brain is going at the moment thinking about taste and what I can do with it. I've got a really cool idea for one which is for sound. But I was going to use that in another book. Commercial project. I am not sure. Delete those. I think the idea is that they sacrifice body parts. I like that idea. Oh, that's all right. No problem. Happens. So basically what I was saying is, how about like taking that idea of like using slaves instead of like giving parts of your body? I know, but I think that it's I mean, I've written things like, you know, with diverse, you know, I want diverse characters in it. I just think that it's very easy when you're writing a first draft, because we're going to be doing this very publicly, to write something that is problematic. And I think that especially when it comes to slavery, because it can trivialize it. And so I don't have the experience to kind of do that justice on a first draft. I can do it if I need, you know, because then if I was doing something, I would send it to a friend of mine who is an expert on these sorts of things, and I would say, look, is there anything I'm being very ignorant of? But I don't want this project to potentially cause offense. I want it to be open to everybody. So that's why I've kind of said that what I'm going to do, instead of making it that they're slaves, is that they can change lord. Personally prefer the angle of magic requiring the suffering and torture, and the ramifications of going after minority groups that cannot defend themselves. Yeah, I like the idea of. I mean, I like writing minorities. I just don't think that I can do it very well on race. Not to a sufficient thing on a first draft. I don't feel confident enough as a writer to get that right in public on a first draft. So, but I like the idea of having a minority, and I think that we could potentially have that. Is that we have got in the medieval world So basically, the way that it kind of works currently is that you serve a lord, that you go and work for them, you till on the farms and you get fed, right? But, you know, you're not going to get any education. You have to do what's said. It's long hours. You know, some people are happy with that life. But there are going to be those that want to live free. And some that maybe have to live free because maybe because of their minority status, maybe because of their, you know, sexuality or their, their ability, as in that thing, they can't get employed by a lord, and therefore they have to live free. From the anime made in Abyss, Bondaru, I can't even pronounce that. Bonrude would go after children. Yeah, I think that we can have elements of this where, like, the sacrifice type of thing, especially in this world, where, you know, if you've got to give tribute to the, to solve the logistic issue going deeper, one would require souls to be discharged in order to send deeper. Okay. Yeah, giving the souls. I kind of swapped the souls for body parts. Mainly because it fits in with the idea of the big bad, kind of the way that their culture works. But I could see it that, you know, because you could give a tribute. This is the thing. When you give a tribute in the weird Western world, you don't know what they're going to take. So it may just be, well, actually, I just want a finger. It could be a really cool scene where you see the tribute and it's like, you know, somebody like an old man who's lived his life and he's like, no, I'll do it to save my, you know, I'd sacrifice myself to save it happening to, you know, anybody else. He goes to sacrifice himself and basically all they want is a finger. Yet maybe somebody else, they're going to say, well, we want your brain or your heart or something that would kill you. And you may have some societies that would say, right, okay, you know, we have societies where there are lots and lots of children because we are prepared that 80% of them we're going to give up for tribute. In Amnesia, Alexander of Brennenburg would torture his victims. They would secrete vitae, which he needed to power his machinery. Okay, so you're basically very similar to, like, World of the Warcraft, Shadowlands, where the Venthyr race is basically how they create anima, is basically torturing it out of people. So they would kind of fuel it, and then basically the Zorval is basically, he's gathering souls to gather power. So I like, as I say, I think the sacrificed body parts, that could be interesting. Because it creates even more tension here, because, like, you don't want to be up for tribute because you need the body parts to sacrifice yourself for your magic. Got a note here. Large families. I cannot type. I think that would be. I like the idea that these people are minorities. Gives us some really chance to have some really diverse people in there. That's really good. See, I'm already thinking you could have one person who's disabled who's already missing a limb. And it would kind of work with either of these worlds where they're taking body parts. They've already lost it. See, this is how, like, you go from start with an idea of a story, go into your world building, and then that kind of, you know, the story informs the world, which informs like the character, and they all, you know, you go back and forth. The one thing I am stuck on is the magic. This is something I usually take a long time over. And it's because we got to have 2 magic systems. That one I like. I like the sacrifice body parts. I'm happy with that. It needs to be the opposite of that. So sometimes if you're trying to create something and you're thinking I've got 2 things, they need to either kind of correspond or contrast, or both at the base same time. So it needs to be okay. I'm going out of a limb here. This is something. So I'm thinking basically to give you magic, you lose body parts. How about imbue something here, grow something on your body? Hear me out, because this is really weird. I want to kind of contrast it with this, so that when these people come into this world, they're kind of very much at contrast with it. So, you know, normally it's like, I take the potion. This may not work, by the way. I take the potion, and I can now fly. But what if it is... Oh, that's it! Aha! Got it! Right, okay. So, you taste something, and instead what you do is that you basically... So basically, when you imbue something, you suddenly find they gain this magic, and then they're like, I don't know, eat a potato, and they'll find that that causes them to like mutate, temporarily mutate. So, you know, like, you know, I eat a potato and I grow wings and I can fly for 6 hours. Because then the tension comes, right? So this, we always want tension, and the tension is like they know, you know, fine, but they've got to eat. They're in a strange world. They don't know what to eat. They don't know what mutations it might cause. Potato gives you wings, yeah. But something like that. That's pretty unique. I mean, it's got like a video game background where you kind of, oh, I take the potion and I've now got, you know, I'm thinking like World of Warcraft, where you kind of like, you can turn in, you can mutate into, when you're a demon hunter, metamorphosis. But I can play around with that because it's not something you can control if you don't know what your food source is. And it contrasts nicely with this world. And it also contrasts with the fact that the crab people, the big bad world, they're looking to mutate their bodies. But this magic doesn't work on them. There's loads of areas that you can explore with this. So, you know, okay, so you eat your potato and you get your wings. But maybe the big bads will like say, well, we want you to eat a potato and then we're going to cut your wings off and we're going to glue them onto one of our drones. Sometimes you have to abstract it. I know this might sound a little bit absurd, but you kind of, when you get into the story, you'll try and make it feel a little bit more solid. I think that will do for world building. Now, normally, if I am world building, I will literally spend weeks and months on this. Obviously, I've done this in what, an hour and a half. So there are gaps now, but what I'm trying to do, thinking of just writing, don't know if that's possible to tell. I tell you where it possibly is, if you're interested in that sort of thing. I've looked at this market. I haven't worked in it because I don't do it enough myself. Is look at RPGs. Basically, there are loads of RPGs. I had conversations with an RPG company a few months ago, and I don't play enough RPGs to really understand their game and how it works and things like that. And because it was the pandemic, unless I was using Roll20 or things like that, I basically wasn't going to get the experience of it. But sometimes where I would investigate, what I would look at, is looking at kind of doing scenario books. There is a market there. When I spoke to this guy, he said, look, we can't employ writers fast enough for the system that they were using. It wasn't D&D. Yeah, there is kind of a market there. So you'd need to research that market. So I tell you what this is how I would approach it if I was doing it professionally. And I'm looking at lots of different markets at the moment, and I have kind of looked at RPGs, but so I would first of all see think what's the most popular system, which is probably D&D 5e, is it, or something? I want to write it in an article format similar to the SCP Foundation. I don't know the SCP Foundation. Okay. You could possibly do it, yeah. I don't think I'll have time to set up data entry or game balancing. Okay. I mean, I don't think it ever hurts to do... If you build... Here's the thing. If you build lots of worlds, right? Might not be able to... It's the selling that it is. That's where I'm kind of thinking. Because... The problem is you think of things like video games, a lot of that world building would be dependent on the game. So unless you're developing the game, even if so I'm doing some commercial work for a gaming company, and I got a lot of free reign there because of the way that the way that the game works. But you have so many constraints. You haven't got, in most, even especially most gaming companies, the just as like we said, our story kind of dictates our world, dictates our characters. The kind of game mechanics would dictate the world. I mean, is there somewhere like I don't know where ARGs or LARPs or something like that would be interested in plots? Yeah, just want to do world building without any game. The problem is that most of people who are writing story and doing characters will probably do world building as part of that. So the only thing as I say, I think genuinely the best option for selling world building is kind of like gaming modules for the RPGs. Find an RPG that you like that has got enough scope, something like D&D. I would investigate. What I would do is investigate the market to see if there is any option, like a free community where people are. There's probably some Discord or something like that where people are writing their own scenarios. No game. Yeah, but like a gaming module wouldn't have anything to do with the game. So literally all you're doing is you're giving like the dungeon master just kind of like a world from which they can pull. So like a resource book. So, you know, it wouldn't be, you might have to do, you don't even have to do characters. You can just say, look, here's a scenario. This is a history of the world. You just have to set it up so that a games master could use it. They'd probably be the biggest market for pre-made world building. I mean, like the Samara. Oh well, nothing small then. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other. I would possibly see if there is like a Discord world building community. And it might be like a subsection of something else, like, you know, narrative design for video games, or RPG writing, or LARP creation, or something like that. And maybe sort of hang out in there, and maybe those people will know about more commercial opportunities. But I think that you're probably going to need to bolt something onto it. So like with the stuff I'm doing on narrative design at the moment, I'm having to do a ton of logic work with like attributes. And I thought I was really good at this stuff because, like, literally, you know, when I was like 12, I was writing like basic games, which were like text adventures. So, you know about, you know, and I've worked in IT, so I know about like attributes and things like that. And my God, it's way more complicated than I ever thought. It literally burns my brain. So, yeah, I would have a look at those areas. And obviously, if you can find somewhere, let me know. That'd be interesting. As I say, I am literally going through an exercise myself over the course of this year, looking at all different types of writing and just sort of seeing what the opportunities are there. You know, you can't just walk straight into those things. Understanding the markets, things like that. So I've looked at RPGs. I mean, my writing, I'm writing stories, so video game narrative design, short stories, novels, I think scripts, things like that. So lots of different areas. So yeah, cool. Well, I think what we are going to do is I think I've got enough there to go on. So I am probably going to end it there. And what I am going to do is this video will go up on YouTube at some point. I have to export it all. And these notes, Bob earlier made a thing about whether I could put the documents on Google Docs. So I'm going to do that over the weekend. And then on Monday, similar time, we're going to basically, we've got our plot. I'll summarize all this like I did with the plot. We'll start creating some characters. And then the plan is Tuesday, we'll start writing it. We'll be doing that, all doing this live stream. So, cool. You're going to head out now. Thanks for the stream and thanks for the feedback. Anytime, more than welcome. This stream is really for people to ask questions. You know, just participate. It's been really good, everybody joining in and things like that. So have a great day. So yeah, so everything here will be posted up. The way I do it is I post what we have here, and I'll also post like a summary of it that's tidied up a little bit. And then we will put that in Google Docs. And so Monday 3 p.m. we will be going into character. So thank you all for taking part, joining in. We've done a lot of work today. I think we've got some interesting stuff here. It's a real mishmash, and I'm loving that. I'm really loving that. It's giving me lots of options. This is going to be wild and weird, and I love it because if nothing else, there's no way I could ever sell this as a book. It's too in a good way. It's pulling from everywhere. So I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody and end the stream. Hey, I will put the go. So the ending page there. I've got to change this. My Twitter handle is wrong there. So it's figures if you want to follow me. We will be, as I say, Monday. We will go through character. Expect on the website over the weekend. There will be this going live as well as a replay of this video. So thank you everybody for taking part. It's been a great hour and 45 minutes. I think we got loads done. Thanks for all your suggestions. And I will hopefully see you all on Monday. Thanks everyone. Have a great weekend.